Hey, I'm Josh, and these are 50 even more insane facts about the Epstein files, only on the Infographic Show. Number 50. Convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein grew toxic plants that could produce mind-altering psychoactive effects on anyone it was given to. In an email sent to Ann Rodriguez on March 3, 2014, Epstein writes, "Ask Chris about my trumpet plants at nursery. It might seem innocent, but it refers to angel's trumpet plants, also known as devil's breath plants. One of the compounds in those plants is called scopolamine, a powerful drug that can cause hallucinations, memory loss, and even mess with a person's free will. And Epstein was fully aware of this." Number 49. In another email from January 2015, he was forwarded a Daily Mail article entitled "Scopolamine, Powerful Drug Growing in the Forests of Colombia That Eliminates Free Will." The article noted that people exposed to the drug could enter a zombie-like state. They became childlike and could be easily influenced into doing almost anything. And the story takes an even darker turn from there. Number 48. There is also evidence that Epstein actually used scopolamine. Several of the financier's victims claim to have been drugged before being abused. In a 2019 FBI memo, a victim notes that she was drugged before Epstein assaulted her and remembers fading in and out of consciousness. She also remembers seeing Epstein in clown makeup, though it could have been a hallucination from the drug. There are millions of documents in the files, emails, memos, and transcriptions, but there's also a massive trove of photos and over 2,000 videos. Number 47. One of the stranger videos shows Epstein appearing to chase a young woman around a kitchen. At one point, Epstein climbs onto a countertop while a redacted person tries to escape. We don't know what's happening or who the person was, but given what we know now about Epstein, the implications are unsettling. But that's not the only disturbing footage. Number 46. A large percentage of videos found in Epstein's files are pornographic in nature. Some of these videos have been downloaded from various websites, but many of them are believed to have been made by Epstein and his associates, or sent to him by the countless young women he groomed. Videos show females undressing themselves or performing sexual acts believed to be at Epstein's request. And perhaps the most frightening of all is the presence of teddy bears on the beds in many of these clips. Some of the footage even reveals the mask Epstein wore to fool the world. Number 45. A lot of the videos have been redacted, but some of them are perfectly innocuous. There's a short clip of someone playing with a small dog and drone shots of Epstein's island, but these glimpses cover the dark nature of the convicted sex trafficker. But he was always watching. Number 44. Video footage from the files also seems to have been captured by security cameras or even spy cameras. One clip includes grainy black and white footage of an office space and a large desk. The way the camera's positioned makes it seem as though it's been hidden off to the side of the office, out of view. This ties into numerous reports that Epstein hid secret cameras around his properties to film sexual encounters or collect compromising clips of high-profile figures. And those high-profile figures were reportedly at Epstein's beck and call. Number 43. Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist under Donald Trump, filmed over 15 hours of interview footage with Epstein in the months leading up to his 2019 arrest. This was all part of a plot to rehabilitate Epstein's image, with Bannon eventually intending to produce a documentary entitled The Monsters: Epstein's Life Among the Global Elite. In released messages, Epstein floats the idea of sharing a video interview on YouTube, noting that Woody, believed to be Woody Allen, would help to edit it. His goal: to humanize the monster. And that plan went beyond a single video. Number 42. The files also reveal Bannon's strategy to rebrand Epstein in the eyes of the public. They tried to shift the attention away from a man who trafficked and allowed the world's richest, most powerful men to abuse young women, and instead highlight his philanthropy. In his messages, Bannon stressed that Epstein was not, quote, unredeemable. He argued that together the two could find a way to push back against what he felt was a liberal media agenda against the sex trafficker. And it seemed like Epstein could lure anyone under his spell. Number 41. In his video interviews with Steve Bannon, Epstein claims that during his time in jail, fellow inmates and even prison guards came to him for money or financial advice. He states that when he left his cell to go for a medical examination, other prisoners would ask to borrow money or for advice on which stocks to buy. He even tells a story of how he learned about the 2008 financial crash when a guard came to his cell to ask him how to protect his pension. But while Epstein portrayed himself as a financial guru, the files reveal that his life outside prison was far stranger and far darker. Number 40. In a 2016 birthday message, iconic movie director Woody Allen wrote that Epstein's home reminded him of Castle Dracula, where Bela Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who surface the place. Add to this that Jeffrey lives in a vast house alone, and one can picture him sleeping in damp earth. Allen's name came up several times in the files, though he denies any wrongdoing or knowledge of Epstein's crimes. If you want to learn more about the sinister world of Jeffrey Epstein, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. As the release of these files spread, the truth could become murky. Number 39. In the days and weeks since the Epstein files dropped, bots, hacker groups, and online pranksters have used AI and other tools to generate a wave of false files and images. This makes it difficult to tell what is real and what isn't. A Russian cyber group has been accused of trying to link French President Emmanuel Macron to Epstein. Meanwhile, fake images have emerged of New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani posing for a photo with Epstein as a child. Real Epstein associates, however, are still being identified, and some are even being punished for their crimes. Number 38. Numerous high-profile people who associated with Epstein have been investigated, charged, lost their jobs, or even arrested by authorities around the world. That includes the former Prime Minister of Norway, Thorbjørn Jagland. Jagland has been charged with gross corruption over his ties to Epstein after the Council of Europe lifted his immunity. Emails show that Jagland planned multiple visits to Epstein's properties in Europe and in the US, even after he'd been convicted of child sex crimes. And there are some very concerning email exchanges between the Norwegian official and the American sex trafficker. Number 37. In a May 2012 email, Jagland mentions the extraordinary girls he encountered in Albania. In a 2013 email, he mentions young women. Emails also show that Epstein paid for Jagland's travel expenses on several occasions and arranged extravagant apartments for him and his family to stay in. This fits a larger pattern of Epstein offering financial favors to high-profile figures in exchange for influence and political access. The emails even suggest he hoped Jagland could help arrange a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. While he denies any wrongdoing, Jagland could face up to 10 years in prison. And he's not the only one suffering in the fallout from the files. Number 36. Leon Black is a private equity investor and the former CEO of the asset management firm Apollo Global Management. He's also the chairman of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Files show that he had a close friendship with Epstein, writing him a poem on his birthday, which included the following unusual lines. Blonde, red, or brunette, spread out geographically. With this net of fish, Jeff's now the old man in the sea. But Black's involvement with Epstein doesn't end there. Number 35. In 2021, Russian model Guzel Gaineva claimed that Leon Black had sexually harassed and abused her over the course of several years. He even forced her to sign a non-disclosure agreement under duress. She also claimed that Black pressured her to sleep with Epstein. Some of the files show that Epstein appeared to intervene in the case, strategizing with Black's attorney, Brad Karp, to help his fellow billionaire evade any bad press. But an even more worrying association involving Leon Black has since emerged. Number 34. Black's former company Apollo is a major investor in Shutterfly, which owns a company that photographs millions of American children every year. There's no proven link to Epstein, but some observers worry that through Black, Epstein and other predators could have gained access to countless photos. The company issued a statement affirming that it doesn't share photos with third parties. Black, meanwhile, has resigned from both Apollo and the Museum of Modern Art. The files make it clear that Black was far from an isolated case. Epstein's network extended across industries and continents. Number 33. Another big name in the Epstein files is Thomas Pritzker, part of the insanely wealthy Pritzker family. His father built the Hyatt hotel chain, and Thomas went on to hold several key roles at Hyatt, including CEO and executive chairman. The files show that Pritzker was in regular contact with Epstein over the years, with the pair exchanging numerous emails. One of those exchanges from 2018 involved Pritzker helping Epstein's partner, Karina Shuliak, plan a trip to Asia to find females for Epstein. But that wasn't the worst of the emails. Number 32. Another of the emails between Pritzker and Epstein mentioned the former being in a remote valley in Afghanistan, it's my birthday wish, with boys and toys. Pritzker also spoke about borrowing a couple of military helicopters for his trip from U.S. Army General David Petraeus. There's no further information about what Pritzker was referring to, but theories range from some sort of human hunting trip or abuse of young Afghan men. Pritzker has since resigned from the Hyatt brand, but he is not the only big name who's seen his status plummet since the files were released. Number 31. Emirati businessman Sultan Ahmed bin Sulaim was the chairman and CEO of one of the biggest logistics companies in the world, DP World. But he has also been forced to resign from his position after numerous email exchanges revealed the depth of his connection with Epstein. In one email, Epstein labels bin Sulayem one of his most trusted friends, while others involve the pair discussing women in explicit terms. Once again, however, that isn't the most disturbing piece of information to emerge. Number 30. Without a doubt, the most concerning message between Epstein and bin Sulayem was sent in 2009. In that email, Epstein wrote, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." Initially, the recipient's name was redacted. However, Representative Thomas Massie later confirmed the message was sent to bin Sulayem. While no further details have been shared about the video in question, the implications are clear. As well as losing his job, bin Sulayem has seen his standing in his country completely collapse, just like this next individual in our list. Number 29. The UK has been one of the most active countries when it comes to investigating and charging some of the big names associated with Epstein. That includes Peter Mandelson, who has served in several governments over the course of his lengthy career, and was most recently the UK's ambassador to the United States. Several troubling email exchanges surfaced between Mandelson and Epstein. In one sent shortly after Epstein was released from prison in 2009, the two men appear to joke about him celebrating his freedom with a pair of strippers. These messages, however, were only the surface of a much deeper and more serious relationship. Number 28. Mandelson also shared insider information with Epstein. In May of 2010, he gave the disgraced financier advance notice of a €500 billion bailout from the EU to save the euro. He even told Epstein about the existence of an alleged secret tunnel connecting 10 Downing Street and the British Ministry of Defense. In late February 2026, the former British ambassador was arrested over his ties to Epstein. Another big-name Brit has been under police scrutiny. Number 27. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, was arrested on the morning of February 19th, which was also his 66th birthday. Unmarked police cars swooped in on the Sandringham estate, where Andrew had been living. The former prince was detained for nearly 11 hours and questioned in connection with alleged misconduct in public office. It was the first arrest of a senior member of the British royal family since the 1600s. Across the Atlantic, the fallout from the Epstein files was catching up with influential figures in the United States as well. Number 26. Kathleen Rumler is another famous figure facing the music following the Epstein files release. She was the White House counsel to former President Barack Obama, going on to become chief legal officer at banking giant Goldman Sachs. The files show that Rumler met Epstein on numerous occasions between 2014 and 2019. She was even listed as a backup executor on his will. Rumler called him various affectionate names like Uncle Jeffrey, and even wrote that she adored him after he booked and paid for a first-class flight for her to Europe. She announced her resignation from Goldman Sachs on February 12, 2026. The next famous figure was forced to follow a similar path. Number 25. Casey Wasserman is an entertainment executive and sports agent and the founder and CEO of the Wasserman Sports Marketing and Talent Agency. Numerous emails emerged in the files showing how close Wasserman was, not with Epstein, but his close associate Ghislaine Maxwell. Many of those emails are flirty in nature, like the one from 2003. Wasserman was married at the time, but emailed Maxwell to tell her that he was thinking of her and wanted to see her in a, quote, tight leather outfit. Wasserman has since announced that he has begun the process of selling his company. He's not the only high-profile American caught in Epstein's orbit. Number 24. Brad Karp is another wealthy, well-known American to feature in the files. A successful lawyer, he was the former chairman of the firm Paul, Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton, and Garrison. In a 2015 message, Karp thanks Epstein for a once-in-a-lifetime evening. And a 2016 exchange involved Karp's son David asking Epstein to help him get a job on a Woody Allen film set. Karp resigned from his law firm chairman role soon after these emails emerged. Epstein also had close ties with several big names in the world of academia. Number 23. In 2011, Yale professor David Galarenter spoke to Epstein about a very small, good-looking blonde that he wanted to recommend to Epstein for an editor-s role. Galarenter has since seen his classes at Yale suspended while the university conducts a review into his conduct. He has defended his comments in media interviews and claims he did nothing wrong. Numerous other individuals of importance around the world have either resigned, been fired, or are under investigation over their links to Epstein. Number 22. Mona Juul, the former ambassador of Norway to Iraq and Jordan, has resigned her post due to links with Epstein. Miroslav Lajcak, advisor to the Slovakian prime minister, also resigned after a huge scandal in his home nation. New York School of Visual Arts chair David A. Ross left his job in disgrace due to his ties with the sex trafficker. And more names are likely to join him. Number 21. The Epstein story could take a big turn depending on the words of one man, former U.S. President Bill Clinton. Clinton appears in the Epstein's flight logs in no less than 4 occasions. He can also be seen in numerous photos taken at the convicted sex offender's estate. There are several images of him standing side by side with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and another of him relaxing in a hot tub. The 42nd president denies any knowledge of Epstein's offending at the time that he knew him, but his involvement in this saga is far from over. Number 20. Using a large language model, The Economist analyzed more than 1 million of Epstein's emails, and it was trained to score the messages based on how disturbing the content was, with a rating of 1 being a routine email and a rating of 10 being classified as very disturbing. In a sample of around 635,000 email chains, close to 1,500 received a rating of a 10. Number 18. One of those email exchanges involves Epstein messaging what appears to be a minor asking her if she has time off of school. Another is sent to Epstein from one of his contacts suggesting a Skype session when her parents are away. And it doesn't end there. Number 18. Several more of the most disturbing emails identified by analysts were sent from Epstein associates whose names have been redacted by the Department of Justice. 2 exchanges in particular stand out. In one, a sender thanks Epstein for a fun night, adding that a young woman was a little naughty. In another, a sender appears to be reporting to Epstein after scouting females for him. They note that it was impossible to convince models to meet a mysterious billionaire after just a couple of minutes of discussion, but that they still succeeded in persuading some to go ahead with the meeting. These messages hint at the twisted world waiting at the end of those invitations. Number 17. Records of search warrants from Epstein Island show that some strange items were found there, many of which were believed to have been used in sexual games and role-play activities, more than likely with young women. Those items include masks, a dentist chair, artworks depicting half-naked people, a blackboard with the words "power" and "deception" written on it, and outfits of firefighters and police officers. But that wasn't all. Number 16. Search records and images of Epstein Island also show that the pedophile's residence was decorated with countless framed photographs lining the walls, halls, desks, and shelves of the property. Many of these images have been redacted by the Department of Justice, with the faces of hundreds of individuals blacked out. This provides a deeper insight into the twisted mind of the infamous sex trafficker, who quite clearly chose to willingly decorate his own homes with images of people he had harmed. Something even creepier was uncovered at Epstein's New York townhouse. Number 15. Images from Epstein's New York property revealed an array of bizarre decorative elements, but one in particular stood out: a statue of a woman in a wedding dress that was hanging from a noose. It was tied to the ceiling and greeted guests as they entered the property. Some could argue it was just a piece of abstract art, but given what we know about Epstein, it's a pretty disturbing item to have hanging in a hallway. There were also weird face sculptures, strange statues, and other out-of-the-ordinary items dotted elsewhere throughout the property. One of the big questions many people have had about Epstein is how he got away with his crimes for so long. Number 14. Files show countless instances of clear hush money payments to Epstein's victims. These payments were disguised as university scholarships, even for girls below university age. Some were labeled as modeling contracts, but the evidence shows many of these so-called models were forced to do far more than pose for photos. And this was just one of the ways Epstein covered up his extraordinary web of crimes. Number 13. The files also show so many of Epstein's victims were told that they simply were being hired to give a massage. No other details were provided. These young women were offered hundreds or even thousands of dollars for their services. Many were lured into thinking they just had to give a massage, only realizing Epstein's true intentions once the session had begun, and they were trapped. Out of all the many famous figures associated with Epstein, one name in particular has been seen as perhaps the most shocking of all. Number 12. Often called the world's smartest man during his lifetime, Stephen Hawking served as the director of research at the Center for Theoretical Cosmology at the University of Cambridge. There is no evidence that Hawking knew or was involved in Epstein's crimes, but one email stands out. Epstein offered a reward to anyone who could disprove claims that Hawking had attended an orgy. While Epstein might have tried to protect the images of people he knew and trusted, he certainly was not shy when it came to boasting about his own crimes. Number 11. One of the most shocking files is a transcript of a telephone interview with someone whose name has been redacted. In that interview, the person claims that Epstein would boast about the ages of the young women he had relationships with. At one point, he even spoke about how teens were flown to his Palm Beach property from France. According to the interviewee, they were a birthday present for Epstein, and their parents were paid off in order to agree to fly them over. But that's not all this interviewee shared. Number 10. In the same over-the-phone interview, the redacted individual claimed that sexual activity often took place on Epstein's private plane. They explained that the crew on board were under strict instructions to always knock before entering the main cabin and to stay out of sight as much as possible. This allegedly was to make sure they didn't interrupt or see any of the illicit activities taking place. However, the interviewee goes on to say that the crew must have known what was happening, given that there were a whole bunch of half-dressed teenagers on board with this old man who is constantly being massaged by them. And they had one more particularly disturbing revelation to share. Number 9. The interviewee, who was an Epstein victim themselves, went on to explain how they were treated by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. They reported that they were regularly dressed up in schoolgirl attire, sometimes by Maxwell, including a white-collared shirt, stockings, and a small white skirt, with their hair in pigtails. They went on to say that they would be taken to Epstein before engaging in role-play sex, and many other victims have shared similar stories. And Epstein hasn't just been linked with abuse, but possibly murder too. Number 8. While there hasn't been any official proof of this, some of the recently released files allege that a young woman was tortured, abused, and eventually killed on Epstein Island. There are graphic and horrific descriptions of this kind of abuse in some of the files. Victims who were taken to the island were warned that if they broke the rules, they could be made to disappear. The island effectively operated under its own laws. It was just one of the manipulative, intimidating tactics Epstein and his associates used to keep his victims in check. The terror described in these files wasn't confined to the island. Number 7. A 2019 email to a local New Mexico radio DJ claimed that 2 foreign women had been murdered at Epstein's Zorro Ranch. The tipster's email address has been redacted in the files, but we know the recipient was Eddie Aragon, who forwarded it to the local FBI office. In the email, it states that the 2 young women were killed by strangulation during rough sex and buried on the orders of Epstein and Madam G, referring to Ghislaine Maxwell. And the story gets even more intriguing from there. Number 6. The New Mexico tipster also claimed to have evidence of what went on at Epstein's Zorro Ranch. In the email, they claimed to have been a former ranch employee and asked for a payment of 1 Bitcoin in exchange for a USB drive said to contain multiple videos of the financier himself having sex with young women, as well as details on the location of his murder victims. Given that Epstein's ranch extended across literally hundreds of acres of land, that information could be invaluable in uncovering real evidence of his horrific crimes, and it might not last forever. Number 5. The New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres announced that the state is reopening a criminal probe into Epstein's old ranch. Meanwhile, a bipartisan truth commission has also been set up in an attempt to uncover what really happened. Officials and prosecutors are requesting full, unredacted files from the Department of Justice to support their investigation, and there's a chance this could eventually lead to parts of the ranch being dug up to look for human remains. We still haven't seen everything yet. Number 4. The Trump administration has officially stated that the release of the Epstein files is over and done with. However, it's also acknowledged reviewing a total of around 6 million documents. Only 3.5 million have been released. That leaves approximately 2.5 million missing files, which will contain even more names, dates, details, and key information about this extraordinary case. And the most shocking revelation might still be coming. Number 3. For years, conspiracy theorists have speculated that Epstein faked his own death, and some of the recently released files may back that theory up. 2 of the files, for example, show a set of notes that Epstein reportedly wrote in the days leading up to his death. Some of those notes are rumored to show Epstein plotting an escape. He mentions things like jets, containers, airports, and red notice Interpol alerts. At one point, Epstein even wrote "jail out equals 10," which some have speculated may have been a direct reference to the date August 10th, which is when he reportedly killed himself. And that's not all. Number 2. The files also contain an image of Epstein's dead body laid out on a stretcher, which was said to have been taken in the minutes following his death. But something in the image felt off. Epstein was missing the barbed wire tattoo on his left bicep, a tattoo clearly visible in countless other photos of him. Some speculate the person in the picture wasn't Epstein at all, but a body double. Others think he may have simply had the tattoo removed. Either way, it's suspicious, but the most troubling piece of evidence is still to come. Number 1. One file has been called the craziest to emerge from the entire set of released documents. It revolves around a post shared on the message board 4chan, purportedly by a security guard at the prison where Epstein was held. In the post, the alleged guard claims that Epstein was actually taken from his cell in a wheelchair in the hours leading up to his suicide and driven away. The poster concludes that the sex trafficker must have been switched out for someone else, backing up the terrifying prospect that he might still be alive out there somewhere. The Epstein files continue to stun and shock, but how did we end up here? Watch the horrifying true story of Jeffrey Epstein or click on this video instead.